have Mr. 𝗩𝗶𝗽𝗂𝗵𝗏, Chief Procurement Officer for Jindal Steel and Power Limited. Mr. 𝗩𝗶𝗽𝗂𝗵𝗏, Executive Vice President, Supply Chain at 𝗡𝘃𝗃𝗵𝗏 India Limited. Mr. 𝗓𝗏𝗃𝗃𝗵𝗏, Head of Buying and Merchandising and Global Procurement, Lifestyle Retailing at ITC. Mr. 𝗓𝗏𝗃𝗃𝗵𝗏, Executive Sourcing Director at GE. Mr. 𝗔𝗀𝗏 Senior Director Purchase at Honda Motorcycle and Scooter India Private Limited. Mr. 𝗕𝗃𝗃𝗲𝗏, Senior General Manager, Indirect Procurement at Schneider Electric. And this elite panel would be moderated by Mr. Umang Bhatnagar, Senior Vice President, Strategic Sourcing and Supply Chain Management at SRF Limited. Please welcome our panel members with a huge round of applause.
We have a lot of experience here, and I'm very happy to have this opportunity to spend this time on stage with my senior colleagues. We've spent a little bit of time talking about what we want to discuss here, and then so what we'd like to do is that we'll probably request each of our panelists to talk about some of the points which they find close to their hearts, and then we'll open it up to questions. Maybe there may be some follow-up questions which I'd like to ask to clarify maybe or add. And maybe within the panel, if we would like to add to what somebody else has said, that would be absolutely fine. Yes. And then if there are any questions from the group, I think we can pick that up. And I think we have about 30 minutes. Swati? Questions initially, maybe we cover in about 2 to 3 minutes. Yeah. And that should give us enough time for follow-ups and clarifications. Yes? Okay. So we're going to be talking about end-to-end procurement and visibility, and how different aspects of that play in. And I think the first question which I would like to ask Mr. 𝗓𝗏𝗏 is what are the strategies for procurement and inventory management that you may be using or which you may feel are relevant here, which can give us enhanced visibility across the supply chain?
So thanks, Umang. Yeah, I'm 𝗩𝗶𝗽𝗂𝗵𝗏. Good evening, friends. I'm from Jindal Steel and Power Limited. So actually, inventory management played an important role for us. Actually, from our industry, I can tell you very clearly that we started embracing theory of constraint from year 2020. And it was an amazing experience how we controlled our inventory using this tool. And so first thing we started is basically try to set up our entire ecosystem based on Toyota Production System. Some of our colleagues are working in automobiles, so they can appreciate this concept, wherein we try to set up the warehouses of our major supplier partner within a vicinity of 300 to 400 kilometer radius. It is not as near as 𝗏𝗏𝗃𝗃𝗵𝗏 and Maruti, but then yes, so far as the steel industry is concerned, the kind of variability, the kind of SKUs we have in steel industry, it is still a fair attempt to go ahead with. So we convinced most of our supplier partner to set up the warehouse, which really bring in a lot of visibility in our supply chain. That is point number one. Point number two is on the inventory management. So we set up the target, and even in the worst case scenario that was in COVID, we kept a inventory of close to 5 to 6 days. And one of the enabler was setting up these warehouses near to the factory. That was one. Second was, enabler was vendor managed inventory. So in most of our items, we collaborated with our supplier partner to go ahead with vendor managed inventory. So that was also one of the key enabler where we were never short of the right material at our site, or we witnessed any stock out. Third one is basically how you basically collaborate with your suppliers. And this COVID was one of the classic example wherein the supplier relationship management becomes so very important. So the right thing which we did is that before this started, all the dues of all the supplier partner that was totally written off. So all the dues were cleared, and they were super excited about this thing. So it is very important that we handhold our supplier partners. And the last point is basically on the product development. So the more collaboratively you work with your supplier partners, you will be able to develop your products. A lot of imports were cut, and we were able to develop our supplier partners locally. So that also helps. that the inventory level, you can sort of reduce the inventory level to a very optimum level. So these are some of the examples which we implemented, and I can tell you with full confidence that we were the only steel manufacturer during that crisis which posted 12% growth. Tata Steel, JSW, all the companies were down, and we did not reduce our production, and we were running our plant at a full capacity. And one of the key reason was these initiatives.
No, of course, that was an excellent one. I mean, that's 12% up at that time was awesome. And I think he's also brings out the nearshoring benefits which were touched upon a few minutes ago by Mr. Pinaki, bringing it home. Okay. The next question would be to Mr. Vipul Agarwal. Sir, we would request your thoughts on downstream and upstream visibility to create end-to-end supply chain visibility.
Yeah, thanks, Umang. Good evening, everyone. So I think first of all, as the question you put down is downstream and upstream visibility. So very much I think when you talk about a stream, so it has to be one single flow, right? So when it's a downstream, when we say it is more sales oriented, so let's say downstream is what is my secondary sales, what is my distributor inventory, what is my retailer inventories, what is my warehouse finished goods inventories, and then how it is flowing into my upstream, what it lead to, what kind of manufacturing plans are required, what kind of procurement plans are required. So all of it, until it is aligned and you have the right visibility, there will be a lot of conflicts. So sales system, I believe, the backend is not working or the downstream is not working, and because of which they are not able to, they are losing sales. And the upstream people will feel, because the downstream is not able to plan properly, they are not able to give us the long-term plans properly, their forecast accuracy is poor, and hence we are not able to procure properly. So it is a normal organization issue, any organization is failing, today is there. So I just thought, what could be the right example to link it with? So I just thought, just think about Google Maps. I think all of us use Google Maps. And how do we use it? If we move from our home to our office, even though we are using the same route every day, right now we are used to still open it, whether to see whether there are any reds, amber or green. And Google Maps suggests, and we fairly believe in that, right? So we fairly believe that Google Map, whatever time it is showing, 99%, 99.5% it is accurate. So what does that mean in our day-to-day working? Because we have a technology which has given us the visibility, and we believe in that visibility. It is not just a fictitious visibility where supplier is saying something, but we don't believe in that visibility, or customer is saying something, but supplier believes it is there is something else. So it is a one common visibility which everyone is seeing, and it is the right visibility. Other thing what it is showing, it is giving us alternate solutions. So if point A to point B, they are seeing a red, it is helping me around with alternate solutions. So it is helping you to take decisions. So any visibility, it's good if it is able to help you take decisions. So if it is not helping you take decisions, if it is just throwing you data, what else, beyond a point you can't do much with the data, right? So any technology, visibility, if it is helping you to take decisions in an organization, that's how you have to bring the visibility on. So these days, so many people come to you every day with the dashboards. Everybody right now, half the software solutions are more dashboards, less of the actual problem resolution. So how do we sort it out? Yes, whether we are running core to the problem or we are on the surface of the problem. So that's where I see, so Google Map, if you see, they have really solved the problem. So how do we say whether we are solving the real problem what we are facing? So further I can give you some example. Let's say return management. So I'm talking more from FMCG, FMEG perspective with my experience. So let's say there's a lot of return management, particular products are getting returned more. So somebody will go to the quality team, because this SKU, you are facing quality issues, hence the returns are more, or the warranties, within the warranty, it is coming more. It will go to the procurement. Procurement might not believe it is a transit damage. He will say the dealer is corrupt, he must have put his own damage to us. So how do we make a ecosystem where everyone believes on that data first? The procurement guy and the sales guy is talking one language. Because procurement is back end of back end. Supply chain is in the middle, which is the front end supply chain who's dealing with the sales system. And then there is a sales system which is there. How do you link the three together where they believe in each other? And how do we bring it? There will be a human touch all the time. You can't eliminate the human touch. But more on data. How your day-to-day transaction is running on data-driven supply chain versus so there are S&OPs which are happening, which is the monthly supply chain cycles. Most of the companies are following one way or the other S&OPs. How do you run those S&OPs on a daily basis when there is a problem? Whether you are able to get your triggers right and able to take action on those triggers on a real-time basis. Quickly among the right people. I think during COVID, most of you must have done what S&OPs have not done over the period of years. What S&OPs have not achieved over last 10 years, 20 years, the crisis has told us how to do that. Because you know you are in a crisis, you work like a family and resolve the issue. So that's the thing, I think, how do we bring that downstream and upstream visibility right from the dealer distributor inventory to the vendor inventory? So what vendor is keeping as their stocks and what dealer front-end sales is keeping their stocks? How do we bring it up and we trust each other in our way of working? So these are my few starting thoughts.
I think we've all had experience with passing the buck and lack of ownership in organizations, and I think you've touched some of the points, what needs to be done to recover from that. Next, I'd like to move to Mr. 𝗓𝗃𝗃𝗵𝗿 of ITC and seek his thoughts on the improving the customer experience, really, right? Not so much about internal to the organization, but I think this is more focused on the downstream aspect of delivery.
Yeah. Hello. Yeah. Thanks, Umang, and good afternoon to all of you. I think the first question which comes to mind is, digital transformation of the procurement is the buzzword, and everybody wants to do it, is the necessity. But when it comes to you, what do you want, what you are looking at, what's the kind of solution you are looking at? It becomes very important, and when we were going through our journey on the digital transformation, these were some of the questions which came to mind. A lot of deliberation was done, the objective being improved processes, better products, better services, and in the end, the better customer experience. The customer experience, when I say, it is the internal customer experience as well as the external customer experience. So that's the way you choose your system, then you interact with so many of those software suppliers, those kind of products available in the market, and you understand. So there came a lot of, I'll say, unlearning and then the relearning after discussions with the software suppliers. And this helped us to create our own kind of requirements, the procurement strategy which we are looking at. And with that, it also helped you how to improve your customer experience in form of process automation, what you are looking for. So a lot of activities or action was taken on automizing the processes and taking into the user actual requirements through the software platform which you will be going for. So what comes to critical is that a lot of buying in doesn't happen from the actual users and the actual customers. So in the whole journey of procurement, there are internal, your buyers, your purchasers, different other user departments, and also your suppliers. All of them are linked together. It's an ecosystem. So whatever you are doing, we co-created a kind of platform, selected a platform wherein everybody's buying in was necessary and it was taken. With that, ultimately when you implemented, what happened? It was everybody was so pro about this system. Everybody invested their time into learning and executing it. It was not like on the sidelines you are doing something outside the system as well. So it was something like embracing the change, embracing the procurement platform which you have created, you have installed into your system. I think it's much important that whatever digitization you are doing, ultimately should deliver some kind of customer experience which should be wow. There should be a, internal buying in from all the users. So this is what I have to say. Thank you so
I
much.
think you're hitting the nail on the head here, sir. We've got a lot of, I don't think anybody would disagree with the view. Maybe at some point we may want to circle back and look at maybe how would you measure that part, maybe. That may be something. Moving on, Mr. Sridhar Viswanathan, sir, we would seek your thoughts on the focus on planning opportunities and capabilities, and obviously in the large place which you're operating.
Thank you, Umang, and good evening, ladies and gentlemen. So I'm from the automobile industry, and so I've got experience of both two-wheelers as well as four-wheelers. So currently I'm in two-wheelers. Typically, if you see, the automobile industry is the harbinger of growth, GDP growth, and it contributes to around 7.5% of the GDP and around 49% of the manufacturing GDP. Now, the main point is, if you take a typical, let's say a motorcycle or a scooter, it consists of maybe, we have got around between 500 to 800 parts, different types of parts. If you add all the parts, it'll come to around 3,000 parts approximately. If you take a car, somewhere it is around 3,500 to 4,500. So if you add all of them, it'll come to around 10,000 parts. So it's like this. Now, in this, normally we have OEMs, and then we have tier 1 suppliers, then tier 2 suppliers, tier 3 suppliers, and so on. So just to give you a very simple example, let's say if we are the OEM, let's say a headlight supplier, a person who supplies a headlight or headlamp is the tier 1 supplier. And then headlamp has got many parts, let's say for example, the reflector, the lens, and so on. And then you got, let's say, a PCB, which controls the LED lamp. So in the PCB, you have a chip. So basically, the chip is actually the tier 4, if you see. So this is the this one of the chain. So the chain is so big that in case there is any problem in any part, I think we cannot make vehicles. This is how it is. So it's very important that we need to really plan very well across various, not only at our end, but also at the tier 1, tier 2, tier 3, and tier 4 suppliers, as to how they maintain inventories, have a visibility of their inventories. Some companies are not ready to share their stocks and their systems, but we try to do as much as possible. In fact, our entire working is on SAP, so it is possible. In fact, we have a supplier portal from where the invoices and this one are released to the suppliers. Suppliers have a visibility of our production plan. And so just giving you the complexity of the system. Now, I'll just come quickly to see there are certain challenges which are there. One is the challenge of the chip, which is there. I think this is well known to everyone. Then we have raw material increases, which happen, nowadays it happens very regularly. Of course, now the prices seem to be stabilizing a bit. And then we have the third thing, which is, in the case of automobile industry, there is a regulation challenge also, basically regulatory compliances. So what I would like to say is, if you want to have end-to-end procurement visibility, especially as far as planning is concerned, I think there are two key words. The first word is adaptability, and the second word is agility. So when we say adaptability, I'll just give you a very simple example. Basically, you all know that in automobiles as well as two-wheelers, we have gone from BS4 regulation to BS6 regulation. Now, this has taken only 3 years in India, whereas in Europe, it took 15 years to achieve this regulation. Now, this is really an achievement for the entire automobile industry, not only for our company, but it's for all the companies. Now, I'd just like to give you what is the extent of change which is there. When we went from BS4 to BS6, nearly 80% of the parts actually changed, especially in two-wheelers. For example, we had to move from a carburetor technology to a fuel injection technology. So when we move from a carburetor to fuel injection technology, it's completely different. So the point was, how do we, not only as OEMs, but also our suppliers and also our tier 2s, how it is possible for us to communicate the technology, build up supplier, that is, do the development of parts, as well as build up supplier capacities. So this was the real challenge. But we all did it in the sense that we did it into 4 phases. The first phase was what we call as the planning phase. And then the second phase, we had something called a preparation phase. And then the third phase was wherein we had to make both types of vehicles, BS4 vehicles and BS6 vehicles, because whatever comes, we are not sure as to what is going to come. And then afterwards, we had, these were the phases through which we went through. And in these phases, I think we had to set up around 118 lines, around 31 new factories, and also it's including our suppliers. So we did this in a period of 17 months, wherein across all the 4 factories we could do. I think similar experiences are there with other automakers. So what I'm saying is we had to adapt. We had no other way. This was a regulation. We had to comply to it, and we had to achieve it. So this could be achieved by the auto industry. The second one, what I would say, is relating to the agility. Now, in agility, one of the biggest problems in automobile is, for example, the consumer preferences keep on changing. So it's very important that whatever sales tells today, whatever forecasts today, based on which we order the parts, finally we say after 3, because there are parts with long lead time items. For example, it may be 3 months or 4 months or 5 months. There is some import content. In such a case, what happens is after 3-4 months, the demand has totally changed. So you are left with parts we have ordered which cannot be used, and parts which are not there but which are required. And wherein you have to run about and you have to get it through air freight or through premium freight or do what you want, but get it. So that is the challenge which is there. So currently we formed a team comprising of sales, production, and purchasing, 3 areas, wherein this team actually meets on a weekly basis. They keep on reflecting whatever trends are there in the market. They keep on informing us, based on which actually we keep communicating regularly with our suppliers, and we are able to actually produce as per what sales wants. So this is another thing which we have done. So these are the 2 things, and maybe I'll stop now. Maybe if for maybe the next.
So we'll maybe some of the questions maybe, because it was very interesting, and I think it may be useful for many of our audience members here to understand the kind of complexity which is managed and how visibility both within your organization and at your supplier end is helping you meet the needs. Okay, moving to the next topic which we'd like to discuss today, and I'd request 2 thoughts on this. So this is about the best practices in initiating digital transformation in the procurement process. I'll request Mr. 𝗲𝗃𝗃 of Schneider to discuss, and then I would of course request Mr. Ashutosh's thoughts as well.
Thank you, Umang. So good evening, everyone. So I think a lot has been said today, during the day, by our fellow colleagues, speakers here, by Harsh, Umang. I think Umang, you also touched upon it, and one of our partners, Kisflow, also talked about the digital transformation in the procurement process. So I'll just take few pointers of it. So I think largely the procurement organization has been left behind in this digital evolution. I think this needs to change. And the true digital procurement organization, they will look at automating the complete, processes in a way that, it automates end-to-end, and also that will bring more visibility to the both stakeholders and the buyers and the other stakeholders and the procurement team. And that also enables the businesses in terms of the insights, the kind of analytics, so that they can take smart decisions. The buyer has to take smart decisions. In essence, it's actually Amazon-like experience which employee is looking at, which today they don't get in any of the organization.
Mr. Ashutosh, I'd request your thoughts. And sir, I'd seek 2 points here. One is the focus on the initiation of the digital transformation journey. Obviously, the benefits and the how to go about it, we've discussed in a fair bit of detail. But if you have any thoughts on how an organization may initiate such a move, and specifically in the context of the visibility across the supply chain.
So thanks, Umang. Thanks, Umang, and hello, everyone. I belongs to energy sector, which is going in a major transformation today because we are moving the energy transition from fossil fuel to the non-fossil fuel. And that's a challenge. So we are working with our mission of providing sustainable, reliable, and affordable power to all. That's our mission. That's our, which we are driving. And all our actions, what we drive, all, what we do are aligned to that purpose or the mission, right? And this cannot be possible if we don't implement the digitalization, because we all have seen in the morning that it is no way that we can live without that in kind of a current, the challenges or the headwinds what we are seeing in the system. Now, having said that, let me give you one data points. In 2019, Deloitte has done one survey to most of the CPOs, about the outcome of the digital implementation. And it's a bit surprising that almost about 50% of that has said that they did not get the desired output after implementing the, the digital transformation. And that's something we have to think about it. And that's what exactly, you are talking, my colleague is talking. So what was the reasons that even after having the digital implementation, digital transformation, why the outputs are not coming? One of the major thing what people have the misconception that the digital transformation is just implementing some of the platforms, softwares, etc., etc. Actually, digital transformation is a journey. It is not a one time, it's a journey. And like in GE, we are driving the lean very rigorously in each and every element of it. We live with that lean. We breathe with the lean. And that's what we follow that. What we follow is, for any business, you have some critical indicators, whether you call it as a KPI or leading indicator, whatever it may be. So we are actually measuring ourselves with that critical indicators and finding the deviations. And if it is red, it has always been good. We embrace the red because that's an opportunity for us to improve. And then what we do, we are driving it with a problem-solving mindset. And when we say the problem-solving mindset, it is based on the data. It is not based on the guts. We are finding whether this problem lies in the process, tools, skills, or so and so forth. And then we decide the countermeasures, whether it is a short-term or a long-term countermeasures, and then we decide that what should be the right tool to solve that particular problem. We can't boil the ocean in one go, And this is how once we implement, then we also see whether our folks are ready to adopt it. Do they have the right training? Do they have the right skills? And start doing these kind of things in parallel. And once we implement the system, we again go back and check the outcome. And again measure whether implementing this particular, process or whatever it may be, whether it has put my leading indicator in green or not. And this is how step by step, it's a continual journey which we follow. One more element I just want to touch, I'm sorry, I'm taking a bit more time, but which I definitely wanted to really tell from this platform. We all are working to have, and we all are looking for our own organizations, right? To have the digital journey. But as the leaders, we also have to see we cannot be successful if in India especially, our MSME sectors also implement the digital implementation, you know. And you have to bring them into the main fold. And that is what we also do, that this lean mindset, not only we are keeping ourselves, we are imparting training, we are doing hand-holding to even our MSME sector, so that if we increase their efficiency, then only in the entire end-to-end supply chain we create the value to our customer. That's what I just want to say. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir, for your thoughts. Swadik, do we have time for a couple of questions? Or should we just summarize and close this out? Yes, we do? Okay, so what I'd like to do is that I'll just summarize very quickly in a couple of minutes what we've discussed, and then if we have a couple of questions, we could just do those and close this out, right? Okay, so we talked about strategies for procurement and inventory management, where Mr. 𝗓𝗏𝗃𝗧 shared with us his focus which Jindal has had on theory of constraints, vendor managed inventory, collaboration with suppliers, some of the key areas resulting in permitting them to grow by about 12% even during the COVID times. We talked about downstream and upstream visibility to create an end-to-end supply chain visibility, where Mr. Agarwal shared with us some of the concerns or challenges which organizations do have related to passing the buck or lack of ownership, and how you can solve those issues through visibility or through trust in the input, through helping, which would help you to take decisions, and how SNOPs may be there, but where in challenging times they may help you much more than they may have otherwise. We talked about enhancing and improving the customer experience, where Mr. Sudhir Gupta from ITC, he shared with us some of their challenges or some of their focus areas on internal and external customers, and how they identify what reports, what procurement strategies, what process automations they would like to have, and how that derives value for them. We talked about the proactively focusing on planning opportunities and capabilities, where Mr. Vishwanathan from Honda shared some of the scope of challenges which Honda has faced in terms of the large number of parts, the 3 or 4 layers of drill down which they do, and then the value of adaptability and agility, and how that permits them to take up challenges like moving from BS4 to BS6 in a matter of 3 years, where multiple factories, like 20-30 factories plus, at various levels, at supplier side, at Honda side, were upgraded in a matter of 17 months. So there are really, and obviously sales, production, purchase, sitting together every week, which is something we also do, sir. So I think that's some of those things which are, which really permit the organization to respond very quickly, gives you that visibility across what is happening upstream and downstream, and taking action on that. And then we talked about the best practices to institute digital transformation in a procurement process, where Mr. Gulati from Strider shared with us some of the challenges and some of the ways in which digital transformation, he referred to some of the discussions which we've had earlier today in this context. And then of course, Mr. Gupta from GE, he shared with us some of the challenges which GE is facing today in terms of moving the mix of energy so that it's much more sustainable, reliable, affordable, green. And some of the data points, which is 50% of organizations do not get value from digital transformation. And I mean, for what it's worth, sir, I am not surprised at that number. And I think most of us would not be surprised at that number. Because very often, like you pointed out, it's very often the thought process is about implementing the tool. It is not about the journey. It is not about the change in the organization, which is mandatory, without which the value will not happen. He also talked about color-coded indicators, embracing the red and problem-solving mindset, and obviously the need to bring MSMEs with us. So these were a large number of points which we touched on very quickly, and so thank you so much, sir, all of you, sir, my panelists, for generating so much content for us in such time, a kind of a capsule. And we have a couple of questions. So I'd request, let's stick to closed-ended questions, clarificatory questions, if I may put it like that, rather than open-ended ones which can go off on a tangent. Yes? If there are any clarifications which people would like about any of the points which we have discussed here, yes, please, ma'am.
A lot of times it drills down to having this at the buyer's level. So I just wanted to clarify from the senior leadership, what is the role now the management is playing? Like most of the we are like behind COVID, like COVID is behind us right now. So what is that role the senior leadership of our organization and as procurement leaders, you are bringing in so that this load is not only drilled down to the buyers, but also becomes a commitment of the management?
Would somebody like to take that?
See, you are right. See, the buyers definitely, they definitely have a say, but I think we have moved on as a fraternity and as a professionals. I think there is too much of emphasis in terms of a balanced scorecard approach where you take the credentials of the supplier partners, you talk about their quality, all the efficiencies. So taking the call basically on total cost of ownership, that actually in our company, in our case, we do it quite regularly. And then, as I said, on the theory of constraint, we actually use it quite frequently. And so whatever call we take, we go for a cash velocity. It becomes so easy that, whether you want to go for a hybrid approach or you want to go on a standalone basis, what kind of cash velocity it is giving it to you. So if just an example, my monthly cash velocity for my business, for my company is, let's say, close to 21%, anything which is going, any decision which I will take, wherein my cash velocity is more than 21%, I'll go for it. It doesn't matter whether it is a lower L1 price or L2 price. Even if I have to go for highest price, I will go for that, because my return, whatever amount I'm going to deploy against that package, my return is much higher than my cash velocity. So I think we all are graduating from that thoughts, and I think there is so much of transparency in terms of data, in terms of really scanning it through it, where exactly it went wrong, all the feedbacks, all the technical. I think it's growing up. It's no more buyer-specific things. And also, supplier partners have also become very vigilant. They are also very, they have the market intelligence. They have got the data. They know how the performance is going on for their packages. So I think we as a fraternity and as a family, I think we all are growing.
I think buyer gets too closely linked with the vendor also, or the supplier. So at times you have to detach yourself with the supplier. So and think rationally what is right between both the ends. Because one side is your own organization, let's say they are asking you to stop something or start something. And other side is the supplier, because you have sent one mail 2 months before that this is the forecast, and hence he has done something, or let's say produced something. So those are the things which will keep on coming in the life. And that's a part and parcel of, I'll say, the buyer's life. Because you have power on one side, and once the buyer is there, he or she feels very powerful. But the same side, there's a sales side. When you have to catch that side of the end, it becomes a little different when you have to face the other side of it.
And the supplier's job is to make the buyer feel very powerful, even though actually that may not be the case. Okay, one last question, please. Please, of course.
Yeah, I think, see, the management has to take a bigger responsibility compared to what we are talking. Buyer is at the lowest level in the organization. So it's very important that for management to build human capabilities in terms of equipping the buyer to the maximum extent possible, so that the jobs are easily done. So the facilitation job and the strategic job is being done at the top level, which happens in every organization. But how do we equip the buyer? What is it that he needs, and at what point of time, and what are the developmental needs for the buyer? I think unless we identify that, and unless we clearly make a roadmap, maybe for 2-3 years, as to how we will improve the skills of the buyer and different layers of management, like middle management, and even the senior management, I think it will be very difficult for procurement to. That's all. Thank you.
Okay, last question. Please. No, yeah. You had a gentleman in the middle. Yes, please.
Okay. So thank you very much for a wonderful discussion. I would like to know from your desk, where each one of you heading purchasing and as a CPO position, from your perspective, what would be the top 5 KPIs, metrics, which you would like to see every day, weekly or monthly basis to keep a track of end-to-end visibility, and still the functions remains in control and delivering the business objective?
Okay, so I request Mr. Gulati to lead off, or people can keep adding as you go along.
Sure, thank you.
If people
So I
want to
think,
use the same one, which has already been mentioned, you just say, I agree with that, and you can just add to it as you go along, right? In the interest of time, please.
Sure, so I think you talked about the 5 KPIs, right? Which is important for the end-to-end visibility. That's the question. Top right is okay. So I think first is the spend visibility. I think that's very important because unless you have a spend visibility, you will not be able to strategize, right?
No, we're not doing Y, just 5.
Okay.
Yeah, just 5. We're not doing Y.
Okay, so spend visibility, you want to talk on the others or shall I take all the 5 together?
Yeah, no, your 5. Then next,
okay.
We'll ask Mr. Sridharan for his 5.
So for me, the spend, the strategy, if you ask me, the third is this, the saving numbers, because that's also important. That's the bread and butter for us. And then the right tools, so that we have the right processes in place, and also the kind of operating model, which will help us to have an end-to-end visibility of the entire procurement process. Thank you.
Mr. Sridharan, please. Yes, sir.
Yeah. As per me, the 5, this one will be, one is the main is the procurement strategy. And second thing is procurement organization. Then we have, for example, I have to buy at the lowest cost. That's the key at the end of the day. And then we have, for example, digitalization, and maybe last is supplier management or supplier relationships.
Yeah, for me, it is spend will be 1, strategy second. Third will be my cost of goods, how the trend is moving practically. Fourth will be out of stock status as a trending, and fifth will be the supplier relationship, where I am standing. We have a metric, some kind of scorecard. So how it's varying on a weekly or monthly basis, because for us supplier, that engagement, the collaboration is the key to all this digitization or anything what you do. Thank you.
Just to add, I think most of the points are correct. Nowadays, I think the one point where we have to be on top of the world is the disruption, the potential risk, what we have. I think gone are the days when we talk about annual forecast. I think time has come where we have to go for even monthly forecast, or maybe sometime weekly forecast. So I think that is also one of the adder which I think I will see in my overall KPIs.
Okay, for me, I think that's what we also follow. We call it the SQDC. Safety is our top. Quality, delivery, and cost. For us, the human safety is primary, which we always try to see as the topmost our KPI when we track, be it any functions, be it any business.
Yeah, I think most of it is covered, but on a lighter note, I think first of all, I'll say equally important is whether you are charged up, your team is charged up every day or not. So all of this will happen because anyway you are a service function, more than you, 10 more people are chasing your targets. So anyway, if you are not doing, someone is following up with you to get it done. So in terms of, and at a top level anyway, it's the organization KPIs which are more important. As long as you are meeting those KPIs, rest all will follow automatically. So one thing is for sure, your team need to be charged up. So it has to be from activity based to project based. So it should not be punch in, punch out for the teams. It must be, they have some 5 projects, 5 new initiatives, lot many pipeline of initiatives. So they are charged up to do, so they have 6 months of visibility, ki, okay, well, this is what I need to achieve over a period of time. If that is there, rest all will follow.
Okay, I am much more operations. So daily I look at 2 numbers. One is inventory fill rate. We've got numbers for each inventory, so whether I'm on track or not. And the second thing I look at every day is whether the dispatches from wherever on the planet, whether we've got L1, L2, L3 kind of escalations. So if anything is hitting L3 escalation, I want to see every day. So that's a daily thing. Weekly, I look at whether the production is as per plan or it's going off, because obviously it doesn't. And once a month, we look at benchmarking, raw material purchase, spend, whether we're buying at the right prices or we're going off. So we do 80% of spend benchmarking. So we look at that every month. That's the number we look at. And new product development, new resources which we are doing. whether I've got, so risk mitigation we do by tracking which items are need sources. So where we are not being able to develop, we look at that every month. So those are my daily, weekly, monthly kind of checkpoints.
Great.